Hey everybody, welcome back to Managerial Accounting. And we've been teasing you about doing some problems. I keep talking about these videos where I actually work a few problems for you. And we're finally to that point where we're going to look at a problem involving separating mixed cost into a fixed and variable component. And we're going to use what's called the high-low methodology to do that. The high-low methodology is a very simple calculation. There's some pros and cons to it. The biggest pro is probably it's easy to figure. As I'll show you in a second, there's only really 3 steps involved. No real hard math, some subtraction and a little bit of division. That's about it. It's objective. If I do the calculation, if you do the calculation, if anybody does the high-low method for a particular data set, they'll come up with the exact same conclusion as to how the costs break down into a fixed and variable component. So that's good. It takes away some of the guess and the judgment work behind it. The big drawback is if there's any outlier data in our data set, like if most of the data points are around, a level of activity of 500, but we had 1 month where our level of activity is like 2,500 and it's 5 times more, then that could skew the whole thing and not give us a very accurate representation of how the costs break down between fixed and variable. So, with that being said, here's the problem that we're going to work. Doheny Manufacturing had the following 12 months of data on purchasing cost and number of POs. Manufacturing companies, especially bigger ones, have a dedicated purchasing department to get raw material into the building and to get it into production. And it's not like you or me, we go to Walmart and buy a pack of bubble gum, or go to Lowe's and buy a sack of concrete. You think of like Ford and all the materials that go into the production process. Those have to come from somewhere. So what do we do with these purchasing departments and these purchasing costs? And how can we kind of analyze them? We just have a total number here. We have a total number for purchasing cost every month. We've determined that what is driving that cost is the number of POs. Every time a PO is generated, that kind of costs money and it begins that whole purchasing process. So we've identified our driver and we have a total amount. What we want to do is be able to break it down into a fixed and a variable component so we can accurately predict going forward what our total purchasing cost might be at a level of maybe 600 purchase orders, or maybe 700, or maybe 300, whatever the case might be. The whole point behind what we're doing is trying to get a handle around the cost that we have and what's driving them. That way we can kind of analyze and plan going forward. So we're going to break these totals down into a fixed component and a variable component. That's what the problem's looking for. I'm going to bring up a spreadsheet here and we're going to kind of work through, and I'm going to walk through step by step how to do high-low. So there we have it. I've got my data from the problem. There's my data. I've dumped it into an Excel spreadsheet. Again, I love Excel spreadsheets to work these problems in cost accounting. If you're taking intermediate, any kind of higher level accounting class, it just helps you keep your data straight in a way that maybe writing it down on paper doesn't. So make Excel your good friend. We need to determine the high point and the low point. And we'll kind of begin high-low method doing that. I got step 1 right here. Identify the high and low level of activity and the associated cost at that level of activity. Now, you can see we don't have a lot of data points, so you could probably eyeball it. Maybe if we had 100 data points here, Martha Martin didn't raise no fool back in Pekin, Indiana. I'm going to make my job as easy as possible in trying to identify the high and low parts here. So I'm going to use an Excel formula called max, which looks for the maximum number in a data set. So I'm going to hit equal max. I'm going to just kind of highlight that data group right there. And in doing so, I find out that the maximum number happened in August. It was 560. Now I'm going to look up the minimum, the low level. Equal min. I'm going to grab that data set, and I get 330. So the high number of POs happened in August, and the low number happened in February. Now I'm going to take the associated cost at that level, high and low, and plug that in. So when we had 560 in August, we had a total cost of $20,940. In February, the total cost was $18,065. Our goal is to get the difference between the high and the low. So I simply went in here and I subtracted 560 minus 330, I got 230. And I did the math right there and got 2875. That's step one of high-low. Like I said, very easy. If you can pick out high, you can pick out low on the activity front, then you can do high-low. Step two is a little calculation we're going to do. We're going to divide the difference in the cost by the difference in activity. Very simple calculation. I'm just going to hit equal. I'm going to highlight the difference in cost. I'm going to divide by the difference in the activity level. And I get $12.50. What that represents is the variable portion per unit. So that means basically every time we generate a PO, we're incurring $12.50 in variable cost, according to our methodology here. So with the variable part pinned down, now what we got to do is figure out what portion is going to be fixed. So we got to do a little bit of an equation here, but it's not that bad. Just kind of bear with me. Step 3, we got to calculate the fixed portion of the cost, and we're going to do that using the high points. My high points were 560, I should say, for activity level, and 20,940 for the cost. So if my total cost is 20,940, there we have it right there. That's where it came from. I'm going to set that equal to our cost formula. Total cost equals fixed plus variable. My total, 20,940, is equal to fixed plus the variable component. Well, I know the variable component per unit is $12.50. Just calculated in step 2. 20,940 equals F plus $12.50 multiplied by the level of activity. The level of activity at that 20,940 level was 560. So 20,940 equals F plus 1250 times 560. You do the math there, we get 7,000. 20,940 equals F plus 7,000. And you know, in balancing equation, we got to get the variable on one side by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7,000 from my total, and I get 13,940 equals F, which, as you know, in your formula represents fixed cost. So 13,940. I can check my math in step 4 if I want to. This is optional. You don't have to do it, but I recommend doing it until you're more comfortable doing high-low to where you don't have to worry about this anymore. But basically, instead of using the high points like I did in step 3, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to use the low points. There's my low point for cost. There's my low point for activity. And I just go through that equation one more time, and I get the exact same thing. So up here to the problem, it says calculate the variable rate. We just figured out it's $12.50. We did that in step 2. Step 3 and 4, we figured the fixed monthly amount was $13,940. So what we're saying in our analysis here, $13,940 is the amount we incur every month, whether we generate 0 POs or whether we generate 500, 750, whatever the relevant range is going to be. On top of that, we're also incurring $12.50 in variable cost every time we generate a PO. That's our cost formula. Number 4, write it out. 13,940 equals, total cost equals 13,940 plus the variable 1250 times the number of activity purchase orders. In 5, if Doheny Manufacturing Company estimates that next month we will have 430 purchase orders, what is the total estimated purchasing cost for that month? So again, this is kind of why we're doing this. We want to be able to analyze what's driving those costs. That way we can predict them going forward. By breaking them into a fixed and variable component, we can really do a good job of doing that. So I'm going to pause right here, give you a second to think about that, and see if you can work that. Okay, hopefully you had a minute to try to do that calculation. Again, we're just trying to figure out the total cost of the purchasing department, assuming a level of activity of 430 POs in a month. So I've just kind of set it up right here in my spreadsheet, just kind of made a scratch calculation off to the side. Level of activity, our fixed amount that we've calculated in the high-low breakdown, 13,940. We did that in step 3 and 4. And our variable amount of 1250. So the high-low method is done. We're just using it to predict what's going to happen going forward. I'm going to make a little calculation here. The total cost is going to be, again, the fixed plus the variable. So I'm going to add in my fixed. I'm going to add to that the variable per unit multiplied by the level of activity. I get 19,315. So in a month where we had 19,315, that would be associated with 430 purchase orders. So I just did check my work. Everything's looking good there. I'll let you try to figure out number 6, a little what if. Calculations are the same that I just showed you. Hopefully you can work through that and be able to work through any problems where you have the high-low method now. That's all there is to it. As long as you can identify the high level and low level, walk yourself through step 1 and 3, you'll be totally fine. Now keep in mind there are other methodologies for separating separating variable and fixed cost from a total. We'll look in the next video at the regression analysis, which will yield different results than what we're seeing here. So keep in mind the 3 methodologies don't all yield the exact same results. They yield different results. So we'll take a look at the other method in our next video.